Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be talking about how I aced the RD exam and how you can too. I'm going to share all of my favorite study tips and tricks and resources and answer some of your burning questions. So let's get into it. The exam is split into questions from 4 different domains. There's principles of dietetics, nutrition care, management of food and nutrition, and food service systems. The test is 2.5 hours long and it has between 125 to 145 questions. One question that I hear all the time that no one ever has a straight answer for is, how is the exam graded? Yes, the test is graded on a scale from 1 to 50, but that doesn't mean you have to get 50 questions right in order to get a score of 50. It doesn't really work that way. Each question is weighted differently based on whether it's easy, moderate, hard. So for people who get 125 questions and then the exam kicks them out, it's either because they've gotten enough questions right on every single one of those 4 domains to pass and they don't need to answer any more questions, or the exam knows that even if they get to 145 questions, they still won't have enough points to pass the exam. So it's a good and a bad thing if someone gets 125 questions. There's no right way. Another thing you may be wondering is if you need to fork over hundreds of dollars for additional books and guides and courses and stuff in order to pass the RD exam. And I'm here to tell you, as a fellow cheap student, that no, you don't. First of all, your dietetic internship should give you the RD exam materials that you need. My internship gave me the Inman guide, and that's one of the most popular ones out there. But there's also All Access Dietetics, Visual Veggies, Breeding and Associates, and a bunch of others that I can't think of anymore. But just choose one and stick to that, because if you buy a few different ones, then you're not going to be able to dedicate enough time and effort into any one of them, and you'll just be studying a bunch of them half-assed and you won't pass the exam by doing something like that. Just choose one and stick to it, memorize it, put all of your time and effort into that one. Okay, I want to tell you about the apps that really helped me study for the RD exam. The first one is Pocket Prep, and I did spend money on this. It's about $25 for a 3-month subscription, but it's so worth it. You don't need anything else for practice tests. You can just buy that app and it'll give you 500 different test questions for the exam. And that's enough to take the RD exam like 4 times. Especially if you've just graduated from your internship, you may be in kind of like vacation mode, and I know I was. So there were some days that I just went out and hung out with my friends, or my family and I took a trip and I just didn't study at all. It can be really helpful to use those apps when you're on the go or when you're like out of your house or something like that, because you can just pull up Pocket Prep or Quizlet on your phone and be going through flashcards. I remember taking Pocket Prep practice tests on the plane, like on my way to a bachelorette party. Like, it's so easy when you have those RD exam prep apps on your phone, because then you don't have to be at home like grinding away in order to study. And the amazing thing about Pocket Prep is after you take each practice test, it tells you which questions you got wrong, and it gives you an explanation of why the correct answer is the correct answer. And it'll also tell you, out of the questions you get wrong, which domains they're from, so you know which domains you're rocking and which ones you need to work on. So the second app that I used was Quizlet. And Quizlet has been my savior. It was how I got through my bachelor's, my master's, my internship, and now even my PhD. And you may have heard of it. It's an online platform where students from all around the world input their notes, their presentations and lecture notes and all of that into online flashcard sets. And it's an amazing way to study. Especially so much information, because the RD exam has such a wealth of knowledge that you need to know. I liked to just take my Inman study guide and make flashcards for each one of the domains. And then after you make those flashcards, you can even play games with those flashcards, like mix and match games. They had other memory games. They even had a way to transform your flashcard sets into multiple choice tests. So it's a really amazing resource. And the other thing I'll say is that since students from all over the world use Quizlet, you may actually be able to find free RD exam prep resources on Quizlet itself. People upload their Inman study guides and visual veggies and all of those things that they pay money for onto this free website. So if you do a few Google searches, like I think I searched for visual veggies 2023 or something like that, and I actually found part of the 2023 visual veggies prep guide and some other practice test questions that I would have had to pay money for. So it's really amazing what you can find on there. Another thing people asked all the time was, how much time did you spend studying for the RD exam? Now, some people do take 4 weeks to study for the exam and then they pass. Other people take months and months, and at the end of that, they still don't pass. So really, it's about quality over quantity. Make sure that you're studying effectively and not spending hours and hours and not truly grasping any major concepts. For me, I spent about 4 hours a day studying, and I would say if you've ever read Tim Ferriss's 4-hour work week, it seems that most people are only productive for about 4 good hours of the day. Figure out what time of the day you're most productive and the time that you study the best. For me, it was in the morning. So from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m., I would study. And the rest of the day, I would kind of let that information sink in. And I would just carry on with my normal things, like I would play the piano and hang out with friends. I just carry on my normal life, because I found that on days where I tried to study nonstop, like 8 hours a day, I was only really productive for half of that time. And the rest of the time I was like playing with my dog or distracting myself in some other way. So yeah, figure out what time of the day you're most productive and spend the majority of that time studying. But don't force yourself to study for 8 hours a day. For me, I don't even feel like I needed 1.5 months. I think with just 1 month, I would have been able to pass the exam, but I wanted to feel confident that I knew the material. So having that extra half a month increased my confidence and ability to go into that exam room and feel like I knew what I was doing. So what I did to study for the RD exam. As you know, I got the Inman study guide from my dietetic internship, and it was this massive booklet, and I'm not great with like writing and reading and stuff. So instead I inputted all of that material onto 4 different Quizlet flashcard sets. And I can link those below. Those are from the Inman 2023 guide. So if you are studying for this current exam, it may be out of date for you. But I separated those Quizlet sets into domain 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I started with domain 1 and then worked my way up to domain 4. Besides that, I downloaded the Pocket Prep app and I separated each practice test question by domain. So after I finished studying domain 1 on my Quizlet, I went to my Pocket Prep and I just took practice tests with domain 1 questions. Then I did the same with domain 2, 3, and 4. So I just repeated that for each one of the domains. And when I got to the end of it, I was probably a month into studying, and I still had half a month left until I took the exam. So I spent that remaining half a month analyzing my practice test results. So the first tip that I have for you is to figure out your learning style. My dietetic internship director made all of us interns sit down on the first day of the internship and take the VARC quiz, and VARC stands for visual, oral, reading, writing, and kinesthetic, and these are the 4 categories of learner. I would highly encourage you to take this quiz. It's going to be in the bio below, and figure out what kind of learner you are, because then you can tailor your study methods according to that, and it'll help you become a more effective learner. If you're a visual learner, that means you do best when you're looking at concepts through pictures, diagrams, videos, any kind of visual. If you're an oral learner, you do best when you're hearing the information, things like podcasts and videos and lectures, and even hearing someone talk the concepts out with you. If you're a reading/writing learner, that's pretty self-explanatory. You do best when you're actually reading the textbook or reading articles, and then you're writing that down. So you may be the person in class who has to write down everything that the teacher says in order to understand it. And finally, if you're a kinesthetic learner, join the club. That just means that you do best when you're actually doing the things that you're learning about. So conduct a lab or a demonstration, or you teach someone else, or basically you apply that knowledge in some way. So these are my VARC quiz results that basically show me that I'm a very strong kinesthetic learner. Secondarily, I am a visual learner, so if I can't do that, then I need to look at videos and pictures and things to grasp the concepts better. I would highly recommend analyzing your practice test results. So many of us just take practice test after practice test until we get the score that we want, but instead we should be more effectively looking at what our problem areas or problem domains are and just reviewing those concepts. So for the last half a month or so, I reviewed all of my pocket prep practice tests as well as all of my Quizlet flashcards to see which concepts I got wrong. And I figured out that domain 4, or the food service domain, was the area that I got consistently the most questions wrong. So I spent the last week or 2 weeks even of my study time before I took the exam just reviewing domain 4. And at the end of that, I was consistently scoring a passing grade on domain 4 practice test questions too. So I would highly suggest figuring out what your problem domain is and making sure you dedicate a week at the end of your study time to reviewing just those problem areas. One tip that I would recommend is don't tell anyone the actual date you're taking the exam, because that's a lot of pressure on you. When you're going into the exam, you don't want to be thinking, what are my friends gonna think? What are my family members gonna think? What's my employer gonna think if I don't pass the exam? It's really amazing to not have that unnecessary pressure. So I would just tell my loved ones that I am taking the RD exam soon. I think I said like in the month of July or something like that, but I never told them the exact date. And I feel like that really helped to alleviate the pressure. And then after I passed, I could choose to share that information with everyone that I knew, but I didn't feel like I had to share that information with everyone, whether I passed or not, because I didn't tell anyone the exact date that I was taking the exam. So I didn't have that obligation or that unnecessary pressure. And finally, you've got this. If I could give you some of my confidence, I would. 65 to 70% of people pass on the first try. And if you look at your dietetic internship stats, it's probably more like 90 to 95%. Remember that you have this wealth of knowledge from your bachelor's degree, from your master's degree if you have one, from your years of work experience and studying. So even if you don't study all that much, you already have this wealth of knowledge that you're going to take into the exam room that's going to give you a bump above other people and help you pass the exam. Anyways, those are all of the tips and tricks and resources and advice that I have for you today. Let me know if you have any other questions and I'd be happy to answer them. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe, check out my latest video, and comment below on what you want to see next. Bye!